is up, YouTube? It is Onion Bomb here, and welcome back to another Honkaiimpact 3rd reaction video. Today, we're back on the playlist again, and man, it keeps sinking in more and more when we really get down to, like, we're coming down to it. Like, there are some long videos left, or there are going to be still a few videos on this left, but, man, it's really good. We are at 197 out of 213. I'm gonna be caught up with this playlist very soon. I explained before though. At the end of this playlist, it's not gonna be at the end of my Honkai content. I do plan on doing more. In fact, I kind of wanted to do some other things like while this was going on. I just never really got around to starting it, but I hope to do something of that like this at least after this playlist. So yeah, this first video though is one of the longer ones. We got 25 minutes, but it's very interesting. You won't believe how much Honkai changed Part 1 versus Part 2 by Homu Labs. And just to see this kind of like side by side or kind of just explained is something that's pretty interesting, because I know Honkai did change a bit from Part 1 to Part 2 to the dismay of some fans that I've seen and heard, that some people don't really like Part 2 as much as Part 1, or not even as much, just they don't like Part 2 period, and they really like Part 1. So that's definitely unfortunate when a game like that kind of changes for the worse from your perspective. For me, of course, I can't speak on gameplay mechanics and in-game stuff, mainly just story-wise, how I am experiencing Honkai through these videos and stuff. I mean, I don't know if it's possible. There's probably people out there who like Part 2 or Part 1, but Part 1 is so much and so much depth and story and characters, Kiana's story, Mei's story, Bronya's story, Fuha's story, and we have the 13 Flame Chasers, the ending, finality, Hersher, and all that, oh man, we have Final Lesson, and with Himiko, it just, a lot of cool stuff. And Part 2 did get a little bit more interesting for me, or watching stuff on this playlist seeming like it's like a simulation thing, and some interesting stuff with the Dream Seeker and whatnot, and the characters seem cool, Coralie, her running with the hammer. I always mention that because that's just that's funny to me. And Cianadina, she seems cool with the yo-yos. So yeah, there's some good stuff at Part 2, I think, and I think in some ways it is still cooking, and in a lot of ways it's still cooking, and it seems like there might be something where it all comes together. That's just the vibe I'm getting after hearing some of these videos and how some people are talking about it and putting things together, and even just it seems like the plan for Honkai seems like there's gonna be something like that, and that might lead to something pretty epic. But yeah, I think Honkaiimpact 3rd Part 1 peaked pretty high and pretty hard. I don't think it's gonna get up there. So if there's expectation, I don't know if it's gonna reach that point. But maybe it could at least get close. But it's still interesting stuff. So yeah, without further ado, let's get back to this. A lot of yapping out of me, but hey.
Among all the
Among Us,
Honkaiimpact 3rd has changed the most over the years. While newer games like Genshin and Honkai Star Rail play, look and feel very similarly to when they were released, Honkaiimpact 3rd was never afraid to take risks and shake things up. The game will feel very different if you come back from a 2 or 3 year break, and
one thing, because I've mentioned in these last couple actually have been about Star Rail a little bit with Impact 3rd. I played Star Rail a little bit, that is something though that I like. It's all right, but it's not really my cup of tea. Is like turn based style games and a gameplay like that when you have to like go pick fight or defense or pick this and then you attack and then they take a turn and attack like that's really like not my cup of tea of gameplay. I rather just kind of like fight at my own pace and kind of just like control at my own will and not have to like wait. Like maybe that's just me being a little impatient. And like I said, I can still find some enjoyment out of that sometimes, but it's just not my kind of game. But usually those games will get carried by like story or characters or both. And yeah, Star Rail does kind of do that, or did kind of do that. It seemed like it was gonna do that. So yeah.
Don't mean this just because all your units got power crept. Hoyo's modern titles follow a very steady formula that clearly works wonders for them. If it makes money, it doesn't need to change. Am I right? But I often say that Honkaiimpact 3rd is a
not wrong.
capsule for Hoyoverse. The more recent content is on par with any modern Hoyo game, plus some junk here and there due to the old code, but to get there as a new player you have to play through some very clunky, outdated and ugly looking content by today's standards, made by a very small and passionate team that didn't have even a fraction of the manpower and budget they have today. I wanted to make this video to show people all the things that have changed between part 1 and part 2. It is no secret that after the end of part 1, many people left the game, and because of that there is a lot of misinformation online due to people thinking that things are the same as they were when they played the game 2 or 3 years ago. Part 2 brought many changes and the game feels a lot different. So if you ever find someone online saying things like "you have to pull for Stigmata in Honkaiimpact 3rd", please link them this video and tell them that we're not in 2022 anymore, old man.
Oh, the gacha system.
Let's start with the most important thing for any gacha player, the gacha system. The gacha system received a lot of changes when the game transitioned from part 1 to part 2, and it became the best gacha system in any Hoyoverse game, while being the worst prior to the transition. And before you crucify me for this hot take, this is just my opinion. Let's go over what changed. PT was lowered from 100 to 90 pulls like other Hoyoverse games. And to fully max the constellations of a character and bring them to triple S, you need to pull only 6 copies instead of 8 like before. To offset that, you cannot get fragments from the gacha anymore. Instead, you get a new currency that allows you to buy fragments and some other stuff from a new shop. Also, most people know this, but I feel the need to mention it for the people who are new. Unlike other Hoyoverse games, Honkaiimpact 3rd doesn't have a 50-50 system. You will always get the featured S rank on the banner. But we all know that the biggest issue with Honkaiimpact 3rd's gacha system in part 1 was never the character supply banner anyway, but the gear banner, which got most of the changes. While this game doesn't have an artifact system, in order to fully gear a unit, you have to pull for their weapon and equip them with 3 pieces of gear tailor-made for them called Stigmata. Before part 2, the only way to get Stigmata for every new unit was to pull them on the gear banner together with the weapon, with each piece of gear having a PT of 50 pulls. This meant that in order to fully gear a unit in this game, you could go up to 200 pulls on top of pulling the unit itself. And unlike other Hoyo games, characters in this game are very gear dependent. If you don't fully gear a unit, you might as well not pull for them at all because they are literally garbage without. Well, part 2 changed that and made all part 2 Stigmata farmable. Yes, you heard me right. You no longer have to pull for Stigmata, you can farm them directly. And the weapon has a 60 PT guaranteed now, and no 75-25 bull. Also, the chance of getting a stigmata has been greatly increased, so you most likely won't even need to craft them because you will get all 3 pieces from the gacha before you get the weapon most of the time. While before you could go to 200 pulls to gear a unit, now you are done in 60. And this made gearing up units a lot easier. In order to craft and level up pieces of gear, a new material has been added to the game. You will hear most players refer to them as the cubes. The issue with the cubes was that in the early patches of Part 2, they were very scarce and many people didn't have enough to fully gear units, but that was improved in later patches and now that isn't much of an issue anymore if you actively play the game. Still, the bad part is that in order to get them, you have to actually play the game, like every day, because some of them are locked behind weekly activities and events. So if you just come back to the game and you pull a Part 2 unit, there is a high chance that you won't have enough cubes to max their gear right away. At the same time, to offset the cheaper banner, Hoyo introduced a good system for the weapons called synchronization, where you can increase the passive effects of your weapons. In order to fully max a weapon, you need to pull 2 more dupes, but the effects are not that big, and even whales don't bother going for most of them. Just 1 copy of a weapon is more than enough to have a fully functioning character, and the damage difference is minimal. As a low spender, during Part 1 I often had to skip certain units, but ever since Part 2 came out I managed to get every unit and fully gear them. That's why I said that Part 2 has the best gacha system among all Hoyo games, because I am not able to do the same in HSR or ZZZ even if I skip the weapon. I know that this might be a hot take, but I would rather pull for a unit plus weapon every time than risk losing a 50-50. But that's just me.
Not gonna lie, I tried my best, but I'm not really the most knowledgeable in gacha systems, so that was kind of like a foreign language to me. But I just all in all, Homu thinks it's a better gacha system, and the gacha system changed. That's the too long didn't read kind of that, right? Mainly like couldn't comprehend all of it more so. But yeah, interesting. Because I knew it was a gacha game, but that's the one thing that like really I haven't seen too much of is the gacha system, like. Which is crazy. Like I keep attesting to it. Like the story they put into it at the end of the day is just like a gotcha game, and that's just they make money like that. But like they could easily like not put as much effort as they did into this, but they didn't, and they do. So just big shout out to them. I feel like because I feel like I've said this a lot, but the reason I keep bringing it up, and I always bring this up hand in hand, is because I cannot say this enough. As like an old school Call of Duty fan, what the game became now, man, especially now with Black Ops 7, is absolute. Like it makes me so sad, and like it honestly hurts. Like, it's not even like, oh, this game's trash. Like, it's like, dang, this game is trash now. Like, yeah, I can still play it for, like, an hour sometimes. It could still be fun or catch myself, like, but it's still not the same from, like, the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4 to, Modern Warfare 4. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare to Black Ops 2. Peak era. They like banger after banger and actually put care into the game. And the games after that, like Ghost, Advanced Warfare, and Black Ops 3. I love Black Ops 3. I'll put that one in there. I liked Advanced Warfare, but I know the community didn't. And Ghost, I personally didn't really like that one. But it still wasn't as bad. There's still some care. It was still not as bad as what we're getting. Like we're getting like slop now. Like they literally put there's AI calling cards. I literally they made AI calling cards. They can't even be bothered to do that. But they'll put like $30 Nicki Minaj and Fuzzy Wuzzy and Beavis and Butthead in this like military shooter. It's like, what are we doing right now? Might as well they just put in anime girls. I do that. Like, they just put in Honkai characters at this point. Because why? Why doesn't it even matter anymore? All you gotta do is make money. You don't care as long as people are playing. So when I see something like Honkai that, like, their whole thing, at least from my perspective, I see like a gotcha as like, you know, that's the so that's what their whole thing. They try to make money off of like the gotcha system. Like they're trying to sell that. So like they actually put effort into like the story and have it like it's like a free to play thing sometimes. Like it's free to play and like you don't have to make the money. I know for Call of Duty you don't have to buy this. You have to buy like the game, which is $70, and it's like, oh, you want $30? You want this skin? Oh, you just have $30. And they're trying to be Fortnite, I know, but Fortnite worked because it was free and like actually has cool stuff and it fit their like style of game. I'm sorry, I'm ranting. I know this is a Honkaiimpact third reaction. I'm sorry, I'm ranting, but this is about Honkai though. This rant about Honkai. I'm just all in all. I appreciate Honkai and the people who make Honkai and how they put effort into their story and their characters, and they made like things like we got the concerts, we got Cooking with Valkyries, like a whole anime on this. We got the animated shorts. It could have not cared. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit. I don't think I am. But yeah. I don't really know what other gotcha games. I don't know if this is like the industry standard, but I just feel like it's Honkai is special in that regard. Like there's extra special care put into it. And I'm not trying to glaze. I'm just genuinely like, I like giving credit where credit is due, and a lot of credit is due here. I know I've gave this exact speech before in videos like this, but I just can't say it enough. I really can't say it enough. Believe it or not, I was gonna say something else, but I've been yapping for too long. Anyhow, I forget. Oh wait. Oh yeah. I haven't said this in a while, but this is still true. I would still love a anime adaptation of Honkai Part 1. Or any Honkai for that matter, but Honkai Part 1 especially. Like, that would feed so many families, bro. Anime adaptation, oh my goodness. Please, one day, somehow, some way. Oh, let's get back to this video. Gameplay. How'd the gameplay change?
When it comes to gameplay, the biggest difference between Part 1 and Part 2 is the addition of the Astral Ring system. This not only changed the way you build your teams, but also gave the characters a lot more flexibility since everybody is now both a DPS and a support. But how does the Astral Ring work? Well, if you never played Part 2, Astral Rings basically replaced ELFs and introduced a new type of unit in the game called Astral OP. Astral OP, or Astral Operators, are like ELFs but better. And unlike ELFs, you can play as them in the overworld and even put them on the bridge. They are semi-playable characters in a way, but they take a more passive role in the gameplay. They came with a new type of banner, and pulling for one costs the same as pulling for a regular unit, 280 crystals per pull, but the pity is 60 pulls instead of 90. Much like ELFs, they are not the highest priority, but in my opinion they influence the game a bit more. When you start Part 2, you will automatically receive Dreamseeker for free, but the rest are gacha only, and while Dreamseeker is more than a decent substitute, and you can also use your previously owned ELFs as Astral Operators, some of them are more busted than the others. Like Overseer Teresa right here, who specializes in the Law of Ascension Astral Ring and basically allows you to use your enhanced QTE 2 times, which is huge. Much like an ultimate, the Astral Ring has a meter that you need to charge before using it. After your Astral Ring meter is full, the unit you use to activate it will have this special animation with your equipped Astral Operator and change your playstyle depending on the type of Astral Ring you have equipped. It's very similar with the Moon Ring from APHO2, where each type of ring centers around a different aspect of the gameplay. Right now, we have 4 different AR specializations in the game, with a 5th one coming soon next patch. Hoyo teased 12 different astral rings, so there's a lot to look forward to. Here are some examples. Wheel of Destiny, for example, turns your allies into shadows that you can summon on the field. This type of astral ring is very selfish, centered around keeping your main DPS on the field as much as possible. Then we have Law of Ascension, which is a QTE-focused astral ring. The playstyle of this ring involves switching your characters around as much as possible to trigger special enhanced QTEs. The new Astral Ring that will come next patch uses a shared team SP mechanic to deal great amount of damage. Besides an Astral Ring specialization, each unit comes equipped with multiple support tags. These tags determine which Astral Ring specialization a unit can support. Gone are the days of mono-elemental teams. Now, what matters is combining the right Astral Rings and support tags. Because of this, you will see many teams that are 3 different elements, or physical units in the same team as elemental units. It doesn't matter. Team building is much more flexible nowadays, since you don't need a specific unit anymore, but any 2 units with the right support tag for your main damage dealer. And if you don't have any, you can use a Rite of Oblivion unit, which is a universal Astral Ring specialization that offers general buffs regardless of what Astral Ring you have equipped. They are
Here's a question that I don't know if I've ever asked or even thought of, but I don't know. Is part 2 of Honkaiimpact 3rd like a separate game? Or is it all in one? Because if it's like a different gacha system and different combat, is it like different, or is it like an updated thing where like they just kept updating it almost like, I don't know if I want to say Fortnite, but that's because that's not really the best comparison. But like, you know, like Fortnite keeps updating, but or is it like a separate thing almost like they're like 2 different games? Cause I was quite like, you know, I started 2016 and almost gonna be going on 10 years here. Man, just like you know, technology in general, like probably like getting a bit better. Interesting how like to like update it like that. I don't know.
not as good as the units with the right support tag, but they are a decent enough replacement. This helped a lot with the power creep, which was one of the biggest issues
like
with
the different combat
in the
stuff.
past. Since units can be both DPS and supports, and can support multiple astral rings, they stay a lot more in the meta nowadays. One analogy I like to use when I try explaining how power creep is a lot less of an issue is the egg basket analogy. Think of an egg basket with a finite amount of places for eggs. Well, during part 1, each time a new Valkyrie got released, it would replace an already existing egg that was in the meta egg basket. Well, the nice thing about the Astral Ring system is that since Hoyo keeps making new Astral Rings and support tags, they essentially create new spaces for the newer units in the basket instead of having the eggs compete over already existing spots. And not only that, each egg now has a lot more spaces in the basket that they can fill, so even if the egg is kicked out from one spot, it still has plenty other spots left. A good example of this is Part 2's oldest S-rank unit, Senadina. On release, Sena was very busted. She was both a great DPS and a top tier support. Well, with the release of newer units, she became quickly phased out as a DPS and her supporting capabilities were reduced to only supporting the Wheel of Destiny Astral Ring. But for that specific Astral Ring, she is the best support and most likely she will remain the best support forever, since Hoyo will probably focus on newer Astral Rings. Sure, she's far less relevant than she was at release, but she's not obsolete. She still has a place in the meta. This doesn't mean that the power creep is non-existent, it's just much less of an issue. Hoyo is still shielding the newer units in the Abyss and Memorial Arena and the leaderboards are still here. But things are a lot more relaxed when it comes to building and investing into Part 2 units compared to Part 1. One negative of the Astral Ring system is that if you are an older player who wants to come back to the game, Part 1 units kinda fell off hard because they don't have Astral Rings. So if you return now, you might find yourself with nothing nothing good to use until you build up your Part 2 roster, which is a lot easier now. This is truly a shame, but depending on how you look at it, this culling of the Part 1 units made Part 2 a lot more friendlier. But I can
Okay,
also
so it's like
understand
one
why people
thing.
would find this upsetting and wouldn't want to return, because their Part 1 units are more or less irrelevant now.
I guess that was kind of a dumb question now, but I think like that has been talked about, like it, like coming back to the game or leaving the game, like it is one game, but like I just kind of, it's interesting like how like, you know, it can update a game, but like the old part is still there. Like is it like for like part one stuff, you can use like part two stuff in it, and but like, or does it have to be if you? I don't know. I'm confusing myself, I think.
Not
But
all of them. You will still see some Part 1 units like Mistalin, Hersher of Rebirth, Garuda Fuhua, Luna, and the Hersher trio used from time to time, but not enough to justify recommending pulling for them. But if you already have them, you can still use them. Also, some Part 1 units like Finality Kiana and Hersher of Human Ego received new Divine Keys and Stigmata sets that allow them to use the Astral Ring. Some Part 2 units even replaced some Part 1 supports. Examples of these are Sparkle replacing Aichan for fire teams and Mini Durandal replacing Prometheus for physical teams. So if you are a returning player, you might want to focus on these units first, since you can use them in both Part 1 and Part 2 too.
I'm pausing this one a lot, but this is I feel like this is different from like the last two. I feel like the last two I was just kind of like taking in information, didn't really have too much to say, but I just have some like thoughts on this stuff. I didn't actually realize there was like teams. There were like certain builds. Or like of course I kind of figured that some characters were better than the other, but I didn't really think about like what like a meta would be or what teams would be or who you like didn't like you had like a DPS and like a support. I didn't realize there was like stuff like that in Honkai.
You will also notice a big improvement in the quality of the models, gameplay, and animations for the characters. This
That
is
makes
especially
sense.
noticeable in the
Ooh.
Part 2 units that have
Lots
Part
of-
1 battlesuits as well.
That was a big kind of glow up, and especially with like the effects are on it too.
Captain Verse is over. But recently it
R.I.P.
seems like Hoyoverse wants to create a new event timeline that focuses on the cast of Part 1 and takes place between Part 1.5 and Part 2. So if you want to know what the main cast from Part 1 was up to in that time period and get some wholesome slice of life moments with them, you will enjoy the Part 2 events. And remember how before we had event battlesuits like Onming, Fallon Rosemary, Sirin, etc. that were all part of the Captainverse? Well, now event battlesuits are mainly taken from the cast of Part 1. Both the most recent Kiana and Li Sushang battlesuits are equivalent of what event battlesuits were in the past. But not all Part 1 characters that received the Part 2 battlesuits are from events. Teresa kinda is also event, also main story, but Mini Durandal is purely from the Part 2 main story. Another good thing about events nowadays is that they are permanent. Hoyo added a new tab called the Voyage Anecdotes that replaced the old Chronicles tab, and there you can go and find almost all the events that came out in Part 2. And don't worry, the Chronicles are not gone from the game, they were moved to this tab right here in the Voyage Anecdotes. So now you don't have to worry that you'll miss out on events stories anymore. And you can even play the Honkaiimpact 3rd and Honkai Star Rail crossover event anytime you want. When it comes to daily and weekly activities, Honkaiimpact 3rd was always regarded as a game with a lot of chores. Well,
I could see if there was an argument about that, I could see either side. For someone like me, you know, it'd be cool to like I'd like to maybe like experience that one day, so to have it always be there, that'd be nice to like just always be there. But I could also sometimes like timed events that there's like a different kind of like hype vibe for that. Like, you know, I mean, of course, I really like when things use like FOMO, like the fear of missing out. Like, I feel like that's kind of cheap sometimes, and just I just don't like it really. But you know, there is like a vibe when it comes to that, or like if you know you kind of feel like it kind of feels like there's an exclusive thing going on, or like just this brings kind of hype, you know, some things just there's like events stuff like that. Um, but yeah, so I could see either way on that.
To introduce a new light system through the Schicksal vacation tickets that allow you to skip pretty much every tedious task in the game. You don't want to farm crafting materials? Don't worry, you can skip Universal Mirage now. Don't want to do open world tasks? Don't worry, you can skip that too. You had enough of annoying weekly quizzes? You can skip that too. Is Elysian Realm too tedious for you? Well, there's a light mode that lets you skip the first 8 levels. And these tickets are fairly easy to obtain from events and other activities. I skip every possible thing in the game and still have more than I know what to do with. And keep in mind that nobody is forcing you to use them, so if you want to do these activities, you still can. I know plenty of people who still do the APHO2 missions because they like the gameplay. Another big change is the fact that patches are longer. Ever since version 8.1, patches seem to be 9 weeks instead of the usual 6. 8.2, which is the current patch, is also 9 weeks, and from the expiration date of the Battle Pass shops, we can surmise that 8.3 will also be 9 weeks and 8.4 will be 8 weeks. Now, I don't want to say that patches will always be 8 to 9 weeks from now on, because nobody but Hoyoverse can confirm this, but I can say for sure that part 2 has a much more irregular patch cycle. Maybe this 9 weeks patch cycles is something temporary, or maybe this will be the norm from now on. Nobody knows. Some people are happy about it because they have more time to farm for newer units and more time to play other games, while others are mad because the lack of content. There are many theories and speculations as to why this happened, from budget cuts to the idea that maybe Hoyo is cooking something big for the game, but the truth is that unless Hoyo comes out and says something, nobody knows the truth. Oh, and in order to adjust to a longer patch cycle, the Battle Pass also changed in the current patch. For instance, no more seasonal orbs. From now on, we will have one single type of orb that we can use in the shop through all the patches going forward. They also added every Valkyrie, weapon and stigmata up to version 6.0 to the shop for people to buy, and said that the shop will be updated in the future. And also now there are more levels with rewards. Besides these, many other quality of life changes have been added to the game. You can upgrade weapon and stigmata directly to max level now. No more clicking simulator every time you want to upgrade the unit's gear. Now make one for the skills too, Hoyo. Also, no more co-op. Co-op was replaced with a new mode that can be skipped with the light tickets. And another thing that many old players don't know is that we have proper mouse support now, so no more awkward keyboard controls if you play on PC and don't use a controller. But you have to go to the settings and enable the option from there first.
What story?
The aspect with the most misinformation surrounding it is the story. One of the main reasons why people quit or took a break from the game after the end of part 1 was because Kiana's story was over. And while that's true in a sense, her journey in the story is far from done. Hoyo kinda self-sabotaged themselves by presenting part 2 as a quote-unquote new story in the hopes of attracting new players to the game. But this only backfired on them because, well, it wasn't true. And it ended up alienating the old players and confusing the new ones because part 2 is not a new story in the truest sense. It's a direct sequel to part 1 and part 1.5 that requires you to have knowledge of the prior story to understand it. After a certain point, most of part 1's cast is back, which makes it even more weird for someone to play the story without playing through part 1 first. And well, it's true that part 2 introduces a lot of new characters and takes place in an entire new setting, the planet of Mars. The overall lore directly ties to part 1. It's not a new story like many people believed, and the cast of part 1 is not gone. But it's true that Kiana, Mei and Bronya are not the main focus like they used to be before. But as the new story progresses and we learn more about the new characters, it looks like they are shaping up to be worthy successors to the old main trio. I think that the new Helia battlesuit is the most hyped up Part 2 battlesuit by the community thus far, and that speaks volumes about the quality of the story given that we just had a new Kiana recently. Another thing that many people say is that the story is boring, overly long, and filled with a lot of jargon and exposition. And while that's true for some chapters in Part 1 and the first chapter of Part 2, Hoyo really took the feedback to heart and improved the story in every possible aspect. The length of the chapters has been reduced to 3 to 4 hours at most ever since chapters 3x. The dialogue is also a lot easier to understand without unnecessary long exposition dumps. The presentation also improved a lot since Part 1. The camera angles are a lot more dynamic and give you a very cinematic feeling, and there are a lot more in-game cutscenes, and the overall quality of the story increased with every chapter. Another difference is that unlike most of Part 1, Part 2 takes place in a open world format, with the new open world being a lot more expansive, visually impressive and filled with puzzles and chests, unlike the Part 1 counterparts like Colosten, Elysium Everlasting and the Moon. I personally find the Part 2 exploration enjoyable, but some people don't really like it. The only chapter that is stage-based is Chapter 4, but keep in mind that you cannot replay the story anymore. But the major boss fights are all replayable. And another big negative is that while we got more in-game cutscenes and better presentation, we have not got a proper animated short ever since the end of Part 1.
Yeah.
It's still unclear if we'll ever get one or if HSR took all of our budget. Graphics and world design also
HSR
improved. And
took
while
all of
some
our
areas
budget.
like Langcha still looks and feels clunky, others like Osha City and Rimu look on par with any modern Hoyo title. To make a proper comparison, look at some areas from Part 1 and compare them to Part 2.
Listen. HSR, HSR, listen, you're cool. But Honkaiimpact was here first. Honkaiimpact walked, so you could run, man. More like they ran, so you could run too. But yeah, in all seriousness, I hope that's not the case. I'd be down. I need to look into more Honkai Star Rail stuff as well. I'd be down. I trust. If they got like animated shorts for both of them, I'd be down. Like, give them both the thing. Give them both concerts as well. Give them an anime too. Why don't you? But yeah, that is something I've also mentioned before. How Part 2 didn't really seem to have like, proper animated shorts or like. Not really like bonuses they used to have. Like we didn't have like. None of that, no sort of concert kind of thing, or like cooking with Valkyries, like all the stuff I just mentioned. Like Part 2 isn't really given like that sort of love right now. And it's just really like the game itself, which is of course the game is the most important part, but for someone like me, without like the animated short stuff, like I don't know if I'd even like be like knowing of this game or even into this game. This is what I was saying at first, and like watching that stuff, like really like was a gateway for me to like dive into this and start like reacting to more stuff and. Maybe potentially like really get into the games at some point, like playing them all the time. I feel like that's like really like good like marketing and stuff, and I think they should get back to that for anything really. But yeah, that's kind of funny. Each side take all the budget. All right, so the maps are Part 1 maps. Interesting sword for Himiko. I know, part 2 maps. Definitely already kind of like, there's like a pop to it. That's just a little bit like more detailed and stuff. Yeah, some of the grounds in part 1 weren't really that detailed, but even like in the floors here you could see like... a lot of shine to it. Yeah, definitely some more detail. That would look nice. And it should. I mean, comparing probably what 2016 to 2024, 3, something like that. So in this regard, you hope that happens, and this does make sense.
Part 2 also has some of the best boss battles that the game has ever seen, and the story ties directly into Honkai Star Rail, but I won't say how, and I'll let you play for yourself to find out. Overall, I find Part 2's story very compelling. Many people will say that it's confusing and directionless, but after you understand what Hoyo wants to do with it, it becomes much clearer. Part 2 is all about uncovering the history of Mars, but the way Hoyo chose to do this is in an unlinear manner, giving us different pieces of Mars's history that need to be put together by the player. They are not in chronological order. I understand that some might not like this type of storytelling. It's not for everyone, that's true, and I think it's fair to be off-put by it, but for me, Part 2's story is very enjoyable. Honkaiimpact Third is an old game that is trying to survive in a market that gets more and more oversaturated every year. While the old age shows a lot of games' faults, it's still very much a title worth experiencing even today. You can see that the devs are still very passionate about it and try to improve and shoot above their weight, even if it seems like Hoyo as a company decided to not give them as much support anymore. Whether you decide to return or not, keep in mind that the game keeps changing and a lot of things are not the same as they were when you last played it.
All I hope is for it to stay alive. You know, keep on going. Cause at the end there he mentioned it ties in with Star Rail Part 2. So I feel like they are coexisting. I kind of mentioned this last time. They kind of coexist and like are connected a lot more than I thought I was. That makes me want to jump into more, Part 2 and even like Star Rail stuff and just like really get into it. Because I feel like Part 1 of Honkai, there's maybe stuff that I didn't like experience, but like as far as overall story, I feel like I'm like good on. Like I know that story. I am down to play it still, like myself, and like still there's some other things like to check out, but I think there's just a lot more that I have yet to unlock learning wise for like Star Rail and Part 2. So yeah, that was a really good video. And really kind of compared the two games and like actually like game stuff. We got game mechanics, the gacha system, and like gameplay. And we got a little bit with story stuff as well. And yeah, it does, there was a change between Honkaiimpact Third, it seems, and Part 2. I can't speak on it too much without actually like playing the game really, but I vibe both. I vibe both from like a story standpoint. I vibe both. It's just hard when Honkai Impact Third Part 1 got so much more than Part 2 as far as like extra stuff. It's hard to like, you know, have the same love built for that. But you know, I'm not giving out hope that one day, you know, we'll see some of that stuff for Part 2. Yeah, I don't know what Star Rail has going on as far as animated shorts go or any sort of stuff like that. I don't think there's any sort of anime. Because I do have a friend who like plays Star Rail, and he never told me anything about that. So I think I would have been told about that. But I don't know if they have any sort of concert or that. I don't know. But yeah, thank you, Homu Labs, and thank you guys for watching up to this point because of my yapping. We're pretty far into this video already, just off of that alone. Yeah, I'm so hard on myself sometimes. I was getting on myself with the last bit of not talking. Now I'm talking too much. I don't know why I'm so hard on myself. I'm sorry. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it. But yeah, we got some shorter stuff here. We got this is a spoiler. We got Helia versus Alter. Helia cutscene. So we got a cutscene. And then there's another cutscene followed up behind that. That is a cool mask. She almost reminds me of like a female Calpus. Just like design wise. Ooh. Oh yeah, that's Helia. Oh man. Got a quick time of it then? Ooh. Dang, she broke the mask. Ooh. Ooh. Oh. She reached that in time? Was that an eye? Like, she said useless, bruh. She played useful there. This is Helia versus Latost. Latos? Yeah, Latos? I remember his name was said a few things ago. Is this a cutscene? Or is it a boss fight? Oh, quick time! Ooh. Whirlwind in the final form. Ooh.
愚かな。
愚かだよ。だから長い努力を受け入れることを学んだんだ。汗と涙、いつか報われる。私の過去みたいに。そして、私の未来みたいに。行こう、ヘリア。
ようやく面白くなってきたな。
Damn. Oh boy, he sent out like 2 clone things? And that armor thing is like her? Ooh. Oh, wait. Ooh. Ooh, is that like a bow? Bruh. He's, le toast! I'm sorry. That was like a cool fight, though. Where's the eye pattern thing again? Does that have something to do with Helia? One day.
This arc is what Honkai is about.
Helia's story was peak Honkai. So Helia's getting some love and story now, it seems. Okay, so that's what I missed the title. Alter Helia versus Alter Helia. So that was like 2 Helias going on for the first one. Okay, I get you now. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Honestly, I didn't see too much of Helia before this, and to be honest, that's so rude. I didn't even think too much of Helia. You know, I thought when I think of part 2, think of Coralie or Dina, with the yo-yos and like mini Durandal now, but so interesting that she's getting some story. Let's hear about it. Part 2, chapters 4 through 8, explained by Potato Almanac. I know that wasn't a lot, but this might be where we end after this, since this is 12 minutes. So yeah, let's see.
This arc is what Honkai is about. Previously, our characters beat the first Samsara and with that, allowed Dreamseeker to gain sentience. By that, I mean realizing she's been in the Samsara and that no one remembers Senna. Outside of that, nothing really changes. The status quo is still the same. Investigate the Shadow Calamity in the Mars computer and its relation with Kiana's coma. This includes Helia as she's part of the expedition to get to the bottom of this stuff. They went through some minor shenanigans as a warm-up, like how Dreamseeker seems to be influenced by something and became obsessed with finding Senna, but Vita swiftly get her back on track with some encouragement. The Vita survivor also led an expedition to bait out the goddess of the system, who was causing problems with our Dreamseeker earlier. This worked wonderfully, as the goddess appears and promptly boot everyone out of the system for being cringe. She also backbans Vita on the way out. This goddess goes by the name Layla, the presumed mastermind of the whole Dreamseeker journey. She seems to have a special connection with the Dreamseeker, which will become an important plot point later. Anyhow, this quantum computer is where the Dreamseeker go to clear designated stages that is theorized to have been put there by Layla. The rest of the group's job is to make sure she is able to do her own thing, as per usual. With this, it looks to be bringing the gang back in time to learn about the origins of the Shadows, starting from about a century before the Seven Shoes era. The expedition group brought with them a lot more firepower. The main gang, minus Senna, but in her place, Teresa, Durandal, and Vita on her Smurf account. Unfortunately, things never go to plan as the group gets split upon entry. Vita gets her Smurf banned about half an hour into this run, but all in all, everyone is alright and reunites in a little bit. They're currently in Langshu a century before the 7 Shoes era, and what they will find out here would eventually throw a wrench into the whole operation. Just know that instead of the usual measure of time like what year it is, the story switched to using which 10 Shoes War season it is, which is like a ritualistic gladiator-esque tournament where people can join, and if they win, the reward is an audience with the god, and they also get immortality. The group thinks that the goddess they're talking about in this case is probably the same one that they came across in the previous run where Vita faked it out. So they decided to join and get intel on the goddess, and right now they are currently at the point in time where it's the last season of the 10 Shoes War, the 31st season. You need to keep track of which season it is because the story gonna start jumping between a few of them, and you need to consider the order of events accordingly. I'm in the process of putting everything together in a timeline which will be in its own video, so for now, just understand that all these seasons of the 10 Shoes Wars are like levels you can visit and leave as you please. Think of it like a co-op campaign where the mission supposedly happens one after the other, but whatever you do in one level wouldn't carry over to the next one. Like say saving someone in the 32nd season wouldn't mean anything if you go to the future like the 33rd season. There are more nuance to what I said, but this is the baseline understanding I'll give you for now. So what else did our time go shenanigans uncover? A few characters have been confirmed to be aliens that were refugees from somewhere that was presumably destroyed by something similar to a Honkai disaster. They actually gave the name Steron above their supposed planet name, but it has since been taken out. And from what I've gathered, it still doesn't make sense timeline wise, so what the deal this name was is still an open question. Anyhow, this group of refugees includes, but most likely not limited to, Senandina, Letos, Serapium, and a new one we haven't seen before, Naharam. Next thing is Agita, who as we know from the first few chapters, knows that she's in a computer. Her case is like the Mobius case we had back in Elysian Realm. If you have the memory, manner of speech, act like that person, live the life of that person, and also with the looks of said person, aren't you pretty much just that person? Agita, you see, is the one who originally developed this quantum computer, which either Senna or Layla is not clear, later pushed to encompass the whole Mars like it is in current time. She approached the group and demanded to be taken out of the system, where she will act as an extra admin alongside Vita. Their interactions are quite funny. Another thing they learned was that Letos, who organized all the seasons of the 10 Shoes War, has been going around attacking and sometimes killing participants from as far back as the 31st season. Most of the story time is pretty much gathering intel on why Letos is doing this. They know that Letos likes to talk about committing his greatest sin and how he should cease to exist because of it. No one knows what he actually did, but all signs point to the coming 33rd 10 Shoes War, which was the last one. So the group deploys to stop his act, as that's the best lead they have. Who knows, maybe this is related to the shadow crisis that they need to solve to get to the next stage. Unfortunately, this led to a tragedy where due to whiplash with Letos, he was able to nab one of them, which is like, to our knowledge, someone dying here wouldn't mean they would in the real world, except it's different this time because Letos just can. As for the final details, we need to wait for more chapters to come out, but the bottom line is, Letos took choleric, and the one who was most affected by this was Helia, whose mental went into a death spiral after the fact.
Yeah.
Her declining mental health happened over the course of this part of the story, though it seems that her emotional outbursts are being influenced by some kind of inner demon. So what the hell is this thing? Helia as a character didn't have anything interesting when we first see her, just your typical diligent, no nonsense and by the book kind of person. But under this facade, she is a painfully ordinary person that had to crawl her way to where she is today. Compared to the people she looks up to, Durando, which by how she is, feeds into her inferiority complex. Not that other people didn't crawl themselves to where they are, it's just that she wasn't born with the genes combining the most powerful stigmas Earth has to offer. So it's the question of how far you can get with just grinding hard work when held up to those that came with objectively better stats and also work hard. This led to a big spat between her and Connery, which, while they eventually made up nicely, was quickly followed by the incident. I'd be lying if I said this didn't cause me significant emotional damage. You know how Dreamseeker and Layla seem to have some kind of resonance where they can be influenced? Well, here we look at something similar with Helia and Helia, but one of them is simulated. We know that the Mars computer has this avatar algorithm that automatically gives people who enter what it thinks is the best avatar for that person. Like for example, someone who wants to procrastinate and someone who never got to have a normal childhood. Or this is just an elaborate excuse to make someone a kid. Jokes aside, how does everything come together? Duendo theorized that the computer could maybe simulate and look through the life and possibilities of its user, and this simulated part is somehow able to interact with the real deal. This other Helia, the bad Helia, took the role of a cog in a machine in the fight with the Honkai. They don't actually call it Honkai, just Calamity. That means it's likely a Mars simulation. In this universe, humanity is losing, things are bleak, and it's all downhill from there. The main trait of this Helia is having an intense inferiority complex just like the real one. Her Corey was an experimental super soldier who sacrificed herself to save Helia before she lost control of the experimental part of her power. After she got KIA, Helia lost her marbles and went off the deep end. Because she's fairly average, she decided to go through some crazy super soldier project, turning into a calamity killing machine. And because she's that angry, she enacts her revenge on everything. The calamity for obvious reason, and humanity for putting Corey through the super soldier project. You would think her rage would end after she destroyed her own simulated universe, but you see, the procedure she went through to become a cyborg came with a certain trait. The wording was quite confusing, but I would read it as the Sim Helia being able to observe her alternate versions in the universe. The keyword being observe, not interact. But with the extraordinary circumstances like in the Mars computer, just like with the Dream Seeker and Layla, it is the only place where these two Helia can affect each other. And if she doesn't get to have her Corey, no one will. That seems to be why she's going after our Helia, though her life didn't seem to be the Sims Helia main target, cause she had plenty of chances to do so and she would rather spend those time tormenting the other party instead.
You're ugly, you're disgusting, I'm gonna kill you, give me $200.
She does this by inducing despair in our Helia by dragging her through the Sim's memory, so as to, in the Sim's mind, have the other Helia go down the berserk path she took, in a twisted way of clinging on to any semblance of justification that all this was for her Corey. You could see a lot of holes in her rationale, but hey, she's just crazy, right? Our Helia, of course, had a field day in the last act after she gathered all the facts together and smacked it across her face. Also about those gruesome scenes they show, just like with everything that happens in this mind space, it's just ritualistic and not real. Knowing all that, the Sims' influence has made the real Helia fall down and up, and after losing her Corey, down even harder. She gets into a negative feedback loop where in her rage, she goes 1v1 Litos in various time periods, either failing or just getting turned down, as she becomes more angry and desperate. This happens about 3 times before she finally turns things around.
You took everything from me.
I don't even know who you are.
What is happening? The rest of the group has been hard at work investigating Litos. They have received insights and hints from the system admins, basically getting told straight to their face to go get his ass and maybe something will happen. And they were about to start fighting him when our rejuvenated Helia appears to volunteer for a 1v1 with him.
You could not live with your own failure. Where did that bring you? Back to me.
But it pays off with her getting a better suit. Keep in mind from the things I mentioned earlier, this is very likely an avatar for her Mars account, no different than how Terry and Duendo looks in here. There was some stuff with Star Rail in the actual main story, which was about as relevant as that time we saw the villain from Genshin. It just confirms that all the horror games universe can be put in the general imaginary tree, the world structure that was introduced with Honkaiimpact, and that some forces is keeping the game's universe hidden from outside observation like from your typical Eon. As for how relevant it is to the story at hand right now, might as well never happen. Maybe this button Sparkle gave to Vita might do something, but I'm 80% sure this will end up going nowhere just like with Penacony. Outside of this, there's the subplot of Dreamseeker discovering signs of Senna by finding her astral ring that a certain goddess is very fond of. We'll get to her in another video. For now, it seems that by finding this astral ring, Dreamseeker has started to become closer and closer to Layla. What this will lead to will probably kick off in the next chapter, so now we just need to wait and see. In summary, the important questions to look out for next chapter: what happens now that Litos is gone? What's the deal with Colori consciousness, and how will that impact her revival? What would Dreamseeker becoming closer to Layla mean for her? Why does Layla have nothing in her head except Senna? And why is Vita acting mega sus? And that's the video. If you ask me what the best thing about Honkai is, it will always be the character arcs. It's a story with a character who has a very relatable struggle, emotions does run high, and her voice actor is killing it, by the way. Just me talking about it wouldn't do this story justice, so go play it if you haven't. Overall, fire story, keep it coming. Next video should be the Mars timeline, so stay tuned.
Alright, yeah, it's a pretty good story with Helia there. Definitely, you know, peak typical Honkai, it seems. I definitely agree. The character arcs in Honkai are very, very good. In fact, while I was kind of touching it, it's all coming full circle. I was touching upon that in when I was talking about, you know, how much care they put into it, because the individual character arcs, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. Like, of course, Kiana, Bronya, May, just the big three from Impact Third was just three examples, but yeah, dang, it's bright. It looks bright. I don't know. I guess I'm just normally recording like at night, really, but this one is like an afternoon recording. But I think because it's like it's snow and like the white's like reflecting in as well. But yeah, it just seems like bright on the up top there. But yeah, next video I am gonna save for next time. But it's pretty much gonna. I think it's gonna be Homu's take on it. It's his peak character development, Helia's story explained. So, I think that's going to be a good way to start next time, to kind of recap with maybe some more information what we just learned now. But this video is 201 in the playlist. Not only have we reached 200, but we're down to almost less than 10 videos on this playlist. Holy crap. You know how long I've been on this playlist, man? I'm sorry to keep reiterating, but it's just crazy that I'm about to be caught up with this. Like, absolutely nuts. I'm excited, but I'm also like, wow. like just a true end of an era. But like I said, I believe it's still being updated, so it's not like this is the end, just the end, you know, just caught up. Like, it's kind of like catching up with our show almost. Like dang, like, you know, I'm used to binging, I'm not used to waiting. But we still have some ways to go. There is I'm just looking at the timestamps real quick. There's a 3-minute video that seems like the shortest video. But all the other ones are over 10 minutes, and it's gonna end off with a 28-minute video. So definitely some stuff to still watch. For now though, guys, that is gonna do it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like or dislike, subscribe or don't subscribe. You know, it's always up to you. I will see you guys in the next video. Watch with me. Goodbye.